Hi, Light of Christ. Lent has kind of snuck up on many of us. It begins this week. We got a verse that I want to read with you to just orient us as a community to this season of the 40 days preparing for Easter. This comes from Exodus 13, verse 18. But God led the people round by way of the wilderness. God did not bring them out on the highway or the straight road. He took them on a detour by way of the wilderness. And this year, for the 40 days, we want to explore the idea of being rerouted on a detour. God meant to bring the Israelites out of Egypt and into the promised land. But as they were fleeing Egypt, instead of leading them on the direct route, he took a detour. And in this case, the detour led into the wilderness and to the Red Sea, a seemingly impassable barrier between them and their escape. God often leads us on detours. And maybe many of us feel like our life right now is on a detour, or it's off track, or that we're wandering in the wilderness, not where we wanted to be, not where we thought we were going. We thought we were headed in one direction, but God instead led us in a different direction and into the wilderness. We see this pattern over and over in the way that God works. He gives us a promise and sets a kind of direction for us, but then he leads us through unexpected routes that can be at times confusing, frustrating, and disorienting. And I've got a question for us. Why? Why does God take us on detours? Why do we get rerouted? Why does he seemingly always lead us, not on the highway, but through the wilderness? Why do so many of our hopes and plans get frustrated, even our good ones? And what are we supposed to do when it seems like God has rerouted us, when we're wandering through the desert? I'm recording this video to do more than just introduce a series for the 40 days. We will have some talks and they'll be kind of loosely based on this theme of being rerouted. But I want to introduce this question and then also a recommended practice for all of us in this season. The question I've already touched on, why and what? Why does God reroute us, take us on a different plan than we expected? And what are we supposed to do when that happens? How are we supposed to respond to God? I mean, our conviction looking back at scripture is that God is always up to something. He's got a purpose. But the problem is, like the Israelites, we are often blind to God's purposes. And so for this reason, I want to recommend a practice for us to take hold of as the light of Christ this 40 days. And that is a certain kind of prayerful reflection, a recommitting ourselves to daily prayer and a particular kind of daily prayer. I want to recommend that each of us take time twice a day, at least, in the morning and at night, to pray. Because when life seems to get rerouted, we don't want to get lost in the wilderness. God goes with the Israelites into the wilderness, and he's doing something with them. And I think this invites us to ask God, what are you up to with us? What are you doing? And how can we see what you're doing and respond to what you're doing? And so, in addition to beginning our day with prayer as an offering, as a reminder that it is God who has led us wherever our lives are going, I also want to recommend that every day, at the end of the day, we end the day in prayer and reflection, asking questions. Where did I see God today? Where did I cooperate with God? Maybe where did I hinder God and go my own direction? So for night prayer, if you don't do this in a regular way, I'm recommending that we do more than just say a prayer as we lay down in our beds, to take some more substantial time, 10 minutes or so, to quietly reflect. Maybe it's using the servants of the word night prayers and chanting the Psalms. Maybe it's rereading the same scripture passage that you started your day with, or rereading your journal. But part of the idea is to reflect on, what is God doing in my life, and how can I be more aware of God's presence and what he's up to right now, even if, and especially if, I feel like he's leading me by way of the wilderness. So that's my invitation. We're going to explore this idea in the 40 days, that God often reroutes us, and we want to be cooperative with him because he has a purpose for us. So let's begin and end our days in prayer, offering ourselves to the Lord and reflecting on what God is doing in our lives today and how he wants us to respond the next day to his grace, to his leading, so that we walk stronger into the promised land when he finally leads us there. May God be with us this 40 days. God bless you all.